What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through 5 league-winning running backs that you guys should be looking to draft in fantasy football this season. Before I do go through my 5 running backs, just like I did in my wide receiver video, I wanted to circle back to the video I put out last year heading into the 2024 season, just taking a look at the running backs I picked last year, kind of checking my work, letting you guys know if my picks were solid, right? If you should even listen to this upcoming video. So I actually picked 3 running backs last year. It was Achane, Jonathan Brooks, and then Chase Brown. So Achane, I feel like a very solid pick, definitely panned out at his ADP. Then we have Jonathan Brooks, who was just a massive whiff. First off, he missed more of the season than I was expecting, and then once he did get back, he just very quickly retore his ACL. So massive swing and a miss there. But then I feel like I redeemed myself with Chase Brown at his ADP, one of the best values from last year, total league winner down the stretch. So 2 for 3, not too bad. Hopefully we do even better here heading into 2025. And I'm actually going to start off this video with a repeat. I want to talk about Achane again. He's going off the board at the 203 as the running back 7, and he is already dealing with a calf injury, which is kind of scary when you're spending an early round pick, on any position. You don't want them going into the season hurt, but Achane's ADP is kind of slipping. So this is me being willing to buy the dip, where if he is going to start to slip 203 later, falling into the mid-second round, I'm going to capitalize on that value. Because at this point, from what I've seen from all the fantasy doctors out there, it does seem like week 1 him playing is fairly probable. And if he's not playing, it's just because they're being extra safe, which in the grand scheme of things, is not the worst thing in the world. And for Achane, the reason why I'm super in on him is I think of all the running backs going outside of round 1, I think he has the highest ceiling in terms of peak outcome, where we've seen him produce in 2 different ways in 2 years so far in the NFL. So in 2023, came in as a rookie, was just insanely efficient, averaged 7.8 yards per carry. He was first in yards per touch at 7.7, and then he was first in fantasy points per opportunity. So heading into 2024, I know, a lot of people didn't really like that I was high on Achane. They were talking about how he wasn't going to have a solid workload, the efficiency was going to fall off and he wasn't going to pan out. And the efficiency did fall off, right? He wasn't going to average 7.8 yards per carry, average 4.5, which isn't terrible, but definitely a big slip from 2023. But he made up for that in 2024 by putting together an elite receiving season where he was targeted 87 times. That was second at the running back position. He had 78 receptions. That was first. And then nearly 600 receiving yards also led the running back position in receiving yards. And so in 2023 and 2024, he put up 17.3 points per game and 17.6. But I feel like there was kind of meat left on the bone in both of those seasons, where in 2023, if you remove the 2 games where he played under 10% of the snaps, he would have averaged 20.8 PPR points per game. That would have been the running back 3. One of those games he left early with injury. The other one was, if you remember, he wasn't the locked in, top running back or even top 2 running backs in the first couple of weeks. So the first game, he just came in during mop-up duty. Obviously, that type of usage and then him, leaving early after a few snaps isn't indicative of what he's going to do in a healthy sample. So you take out those 2 games where he barely played, he was above 20 points per game. Then in 2024, it was kind of a similar story where he averaged 17.6 points per game, but he was just really hurt with the Tua injury, where we look at the splits with and without Tua. When Tua was the starting quarterback, Achane averaged 22.6 PPR points per game. He was super productive, super involved as a pass catcher, 6.6 targets a game, over 100 yards from scrimmage. And then pretty much just like every other Dolphins weapon, when Tua was out, the offense just completely cratered and his production completely fell off, where he went from averaging 22.6 points per game all the way down to 8.6. And if you rostered Tua, I'm sure you could have guessed the splits were that extreme, right? When Tua was healthy, you felt very confident firing him up as a locked-in high-end RB1. When Tua was out, towards the end of the season, it was man, am I even going to be able to start this dude in my lineup? Obviously, that's not great, but this is a dude who clearly has 20-plus point per game upside if he can just get health around him and health to himself. I'll also point out that 22.6 point per game number, if that was over the full season, he would have been the running back 1 ahead of Saquon Barkley, ahead of Bijan Robinson, ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs. So RB1 overall upside is completely in his range of outcomes. And so, we can see him put up 20 plus just with Tua staying healthy and he's able to stay on the field. but like he also has that completely nuclear upside where what if he pairs the efficiency, not necessarily to the same extent as 2023, but what if he's like 6 yards per carry while also being super involved as a pass catcher? He is the betting favorite to lead the running back position in receptions. Like I truly do think he could have a 22, 23 plus point per game season at the running back position, and you are getting that type of upside outside of round one. Now, the next running back I want to talk about is also being drafted in the second round, and that is Bucky Irving, going off the board as the 209, the running back 10. And when you look at Bucky Irving, he pretty much checks every box you'd be looking for in like a stud fantasy running back. He's a talented player. He's on a good offense, running behind a very solid offensive line. I'd say a top tier offensive line once they get Tristan Wirfs back. And then his usage is very strong. Maybe you don't look at him and think he's going to just be like the complete workhorse, but he's going to be involved as a pass catcher. And when he broke away as the running back one last year, he put together a very solid workload. You can see on the screen here, these are his last 6 healthy games of the 2024 season, averaging nearly 18 carries a game, over 100 rushing yards a game, nearly 4 targets, nearly 35 receiving yards. Didn't really even hit in the touchdown department, like averaging 2 every 3 games, but still putting up 20.9 PPR points per game. And despite the fact that he's undersized, he is still used pretty heavily on the goal line, where last year he had 12 goal line carries to Rachaad White's 4. To put that into perspective, like Saquon Barkley had 13 goal line carries, Bijan Robinson had 14. So it's not like he's getting blown out of the water in terms of like touchdown upside by some of these other stud running backs. So I feel like Bucky has a very solid floor, also has a pretty decent ceiling. You can see the path to him putting up, 20 plus PPR points per game. I think back end of round 2, that's just a really solid value. I'm taking him ahead of guys like Chase Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, guys who on certain platforms might be going ahead of him. Very in on Bucky Irving this season. Then the next running back is going to be going at the 4-5 turn, and that is TreVeyon Henderson, going off the board at the 412, according to consensus ADP, as the running back 20. Now, Henderson's ADP has been rising over the last few weeks. He's gotten some hype, obviously had the kick return touchdown in the preseason. That's really not why I'm super in on TreVeyon Henderson, but I still don't think his, overall ADP is going to rise to a point where I won't want to draft him. Like, I just think it's rising too late in the offseason. I'm still going to be ahead of consensus. So TreVeyon Henderson is a super fun running back prospect. He was a big play machine in college. He is an elite third down skill set. And that's not just saying that he's a very good pass catcher. He is a top tier run blocker also. And so you have some dudes where it's like, yeah, they can catch the ball, but the coach doesn't, trust them to go out there and protect the quarterback in pass pro. TreVeyon Henderson is going to have that role on lock. He is a great athlete. He gets the early round 2 draft capital to a fun landing spot with the Patriots. And I think some people, when they talk about TreVeyon Henderson, some people who are out on him, they're concerned about a potential committee, guys like Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson kind of working their way in. And I guess for me, like, I'm not super concerned about those dudes. And maybe it's just because, like, I've accepted TreVeyon Henderson isn't a workhorse. Like, he's not a huge running back. We saw him last year at Ohio State. He was split in the backfield with Quinshon Judkins. Like, I never viewed TreVeyon Henderson as a 65, 70% opportunity share guy. I think he can get it done in, like, that 60% range. I think he's clearly their best running back. He's also like the new coaching regime's guy, where they inherited Ramondre Stevenson. They inherited Antonio Gibson. TreVeyon Henderson is the guy they went out, spent premium draft capital on to bring him into that running back room. This is an ascending offense, maybe not projected to be like a super high scoring unit, but I think when you have like young quarterback, young weapons, those are typically the units that can, outperform expectations. So right now I have TreVeyon Henderson as my 312. So pretty much like a round ahead of consensus. Pretty much anywhere in round 4, I'd feel comfortable drafting him. And if you do want my full rankings, they're going to be free for you guys. Just a Google sheet will be linked in the description. But let's talk about another rookie running back, and that is going to be RJ Harvey. He's going off the board as the 604, the running back 23. And I think we have to start off just by talking about the situation he was drafted into. This is a Sean Payton offense. I know last year wasn't great for the running backs, but historically, this has just been a great offense to produce in at the running back position. And, a backfield that has supported multiple solid running backs for fantasy, in a given year. He's going to be running behind a top tier offensive line. And then you just look at the capital the Broncos gave up to get RJ Harvey. They reached to draft him on a lot of draft boards, a lot of mock drafts. RJ Harvey wasn't going until day 3. They didn't even just take him in, round 3. They took him all the way up in round 2. It was a pretty shocking pick. I don't think really anyone thought he was going to get drafted ahead of Caleb Johnson, but clearly the Broncos are very in on him. They're buying into the talent. If they, weren't, they would not have reached and drafted him in round 2. And just like TreVeyon Henderson, like you have the J.K. Dobbins people who are super concerned about Dobbins, I don't really think that RJ Harvey projects as like an NFL workhorse. He did handle a solid workload in college, but at his size, right, doing that in college is a different story than doing it in the NFL. He's a big play guy. Over 50% of his rushing yards in the last 2 years were on 15-plus yard runs. He's a capable pass catcher. And you look at some of the other running backs going in a similar range, according to consensus ADP, you've got like David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, Isaiah Pacheco, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones. I just feel like RJ Harvey pretty easily clears those dudes. Like I have RJ Harvey as a 4 or 5 turn pick, so he's going like early to mid round 6. I think he's a really nice value, just taking a swing on a fun young player in a, very favorable situation. And then the 5th and final league-winning running back I'm looking to draft this year is Tony Pollard, going off the board also in the 6th round as the 608, the running back 25. And he's someone who I kind of focused in on in a recent video where I like broke down all the like Vegas betting lines to try to, separate some of these players, find some guys that stood out. And Tony Pollard was one of those players because I had him within a tier with Isaiah Pacheco, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, and DeAndre Swift. And I think he was towards the bottom of that tier. But when you start to look at the betting lines, he kind of clearly emerges as the best option, where his rushing line is all the way up at 900. The next best within that tier is DeAndre Swift at 800. Now, he's not projected to get a ton in terms of like rushing touchdowns at 5.5. You do have a guy like David Montgomery up there at 8.5 on a much better offense. But still, you look at the projected rushing points, Tony Pollard still clears David Montgomery. And then it's not like Tony Pollard is a 0 as a pass catcher. He is a very capable receiving back. He has caught at least 39 passes in each of the last 4 seasons. And I think you could have argued like a month or so ago that like Tajay Spears going to work into this backfield. Maybe Tony Pollard's usage kind of takes a step back. But now we're heading into the season with Tajay Spears dealing with a high ankle sprain. And so right now, Tony Pollard has that like workhorse runway just lined up for him. I think he can hit the ground running to start off the season, command a lot of volume, kind of like what I talked about with the Patriots, where like the Titans are not projected to be a top offensive unit. They're projected to be bottom 5. But if you are going to bet on some of these teams that maybe aren't projected well, you do want to take swings on the ones with like a young quarterback, where if Cam Ward comes in and is just like a straight up very good NFL quarterback, they are going to way overachieve, their projections offensively. I'm not saying that's like a guarantee, but there's still that upside there where maybe this offense is closer to league average than it is just completely bottom of the barrel, like a bottom 5 unit. But even if the offense isn't great, I think the volume's going to be there. He's going to be involved as a pass catcher. And like at an RB25 price tag, I think Tony Pollard is a great RB3 option. If you wait at the running back position, I think he's a very serviceable RB2 play. So those are going to be my 5 league-winning running backs: Achane, Bucky Irving, TreVeyon Henderson, RJ Harvey, and then Tony Pollard. Let me know your thoughts on these players. If you have a different shout out for someone else, would love to hear it. Thank you all for stopping by. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.